Coastal Sustainability, a holistic and collaborative approach toward our future. Increasing risk to our oceans. Increasing human populations have led to serious threats to coastal sustainability. These include habitat degradation, threats to marine life and biodiversity, and increased pollution. Coastal tourism and habitat degradation. Coastal tourism is one of the largest stresses on the coastal environment. The rapid number of tourists flocking to coastal environments threaten this fragile ecosystem as well as its inhabitants. These threats include increased and excessive energy use, increased transportation and infrastructure, and increased waste. Threat to marine life. In Marine Conservation Biology, the science of maintaining the sea's biodiversity, the author explains that practices such as overfishing, illegal fishing, and incidents through indirect fishing are all leading to increased risk of extinction to marine life. One case study examines the illegal taking and trading of shark fins within the Galapagos Islands. The author explains how an amendment made to a 2004 bill protecting sharks gave illegal fishers a way around the law. While these efforts initially made Ecuador a world leader in protective shark legislation in July 2007, the Ecuadorian government officially enacted an amendment to the previous laws. Although this amendment still prohibits shark finning and the dumping of sharks at sea, fishers are now allowed to trade fins extracted from sharks incidentally caught during fishery activities under a special permit. Unfortunately, in Ecuador, the incidental catch can be as high as 70%, with 100% mortality of bycaught sharks. This loophole has allowed fishers to continue to trade shark fins without legal consequences. Magnuson-Stevens Act. Congress passed the Magnuson-Stevens Fishery Conservation and Management Act in 1976 to establish federal management of the nation's fisheries and restrict fishing activities in the U.S. waters. However, limitations of this bill, including its failure to address problems such as overfishing. As a result, Congress amended the MSA in 1996 with the passage of the Sustainable Fisheries Act, a bill that revised America's approach to federal fisheries management and put the focus back on sustainability. Since the amendment, a number of bills have been introduced that would weaken the integrity of the initial act. A new approach. A new holistic approach to mitigating coastal habitat destruction and threat to marine life includes a holistic approach of various ethical theories and strategies that would allow for increased action and change toward coastal sustainability. These strategies include environmental ethics, the 3 E's, traditional ecological knowledge, and elements of Thompson's overcoming barriers to ecological management and participatory justice. The 3 E's. The 3 E's approach focuses on strengthening and maintaining elements of the economy as well as equity throughout society and within communities. The 3 E's utilize a holistic approach that focuses on core elements that would allow for a sustainable future. The Sustainable Coastal Communities video is a strong example of how the 3 E's can be successfully integrated into communities with the intended result of improving all 3 aspects of environment, economy, and equity. As the video describes, AgroFrontera is a nonprofit organization which focuses on improving food and farming systems through a community-based approach with the goal of sustainability, economic incentive, and equity for those within the community. The speaker focused on a system called SRI, which would allow farmers to produce more and invest less. The SRI method put into place water management systems so they are able to control the amount of water that goes into the rice. The program also ceased the use of herbicides and monitored the use of pesticides so that they were only used when there was disease present. In terms of economic change, this approach allowed farmers to invest less and produce more. This allowed that savings to go directly back to the farmer. This also created equity and empowered the farmers. The speaker also touched upon the idea that they realized that all communities as well as ecosystems are interconnected and cannot be isolated. You cannot isolate a fishing and farming community, as the same water eventually flows into estuaries and affects the farm. This idea is similar to that of nature and can teach us a model of harmony and cooperation. Environmental Ethics and TEK, published in 1989, Leopold's Land Ethic emphasized the lack of ethical connection between humans and value or regard for the land that sustains us. This intrinsic knowledge of and valuation for the land is also seen in the use of traditional ecological knowledge, or TEK. Traditional ecological knowledge refers to the evolving knowledge acquired by indigenous and local people over hundreds or thousands of years through direct experience with natural environment. The most exciting aspect of TEK and LEK is that this does indeed feel like a way of life, which utilizes the principle that we are not separate from the earth and the environment. As humans, we are part of a larger rhythm and must act as such. It is also significant to point out that tech is a fluid concept and allows for the changing or broadening of ideas based on contemporary scientific and technological advances. As the presentation Indigenous Science and Tech points out, with its worldview of respect, responsibility, and reciprocity with nature, tech does not compete with science or detract from its power, but extends the scope of science into human interaction with the environment. Thompson's barriers in participatory justice and overcoming barriers to ecologically sensitive land management. Thompson discusses the fact that even though greening of institutions may be implemented is not necessarily enough to change the behavior of those who are seeking to be environmentally proactive. Thompson points out that most private landowners have little education about the ecological history or initial construction about the land that they occupy. Barriers to recognizing environmental problems are caused by landowners having a lack of ecologic knowledge of their own land and the ecosystem around them. Internal barriers to action include the use of distancing and defensive behaviors, as well as the absence of a cultural model for living in harmony with nature. Lack of practical knowledge of how to solve environmental problems, as well as the perceived difficulty in solving such problems. External barriers include social norms going against pro-environmental behavior, as well as lack of social norms that are pro-environmental in nature. In conjunction with Thompson's barriers, I believe the idea of Kaswan's participatory justice is imperative to getting people connected and informed about the land that they are living on and which sustains them. In her work, Reconciling Justice and Efficiency, Integrating Environmental Justice into Domestic Cap-and-Trade Programs for Controlling Greenhouse Gases, Alice Kaswan focuses on ways in which we can bridge the gap between distribution strategies such as cap-and-trade programs with the goals of the environmental justice movement, including environmental and participatory justice. The author points out how current environmental and civil rights laws do not address the inequities of pollution distribution in the USA, particularly among the poor and community of color. Kaswan discusses the vital role of participatory justice, the ability of the individual to participate meaningfully in decisions that directly impact their communities. As the author notes, the benefits of participatory justice surpass policy-making decisions, but rather plays a larger role in supporting the voice of those who would otherwise not have access to informations and decisions that are impacting them. Even if communities do not have ultimate authority over permitting decisions, their ability to obtain information through public hearings and to voice their concerns creates a greater likelihood of industry accountability to impacted communities than is less likely to exist without that input. How do we change? By following principles of environmental ethics, the 3 E's, traditional ecological knowledge, and working to close the societal barriers associated with working towards sustainability, we can create global results through changing the individual, so that we may create laws and policies because we see that we have to protect our coastal habitats and marine life, as we are intrinsically linked to them.